Hi everyone, it's Lindsay with High Altitude Astrology, and today I'm going to bring you a video about Venus moving into the sign of Gemini. And this is going to happen on April 3rd at 11:10 a.m. Mountain Standard Time. Here you can see Venus in the sign of Gemini. Now Venus is going to be here all the way until the beginning of August because she's going to retrograde in the sign of Gemini. So I want to quickly take you through her process through Gemini. After the ingress on the 3rd, we can see that on April 10th, she's going to make a sextile to Chiron in Aries. Then moving forward, on April 17th, she's also going to sextile Mercury in Aries. Then into the next month, then on May 3rd, she's going to be making a square to Neptune in Pisces at 20 degrees. And moving forward, we can see that the actual retrograde of Venus takes place on the 13th of May at 21 degrees, 50 minutes of Gemini. That's when she'll start to appear to move backward in the sky. She'll come back into square with Neptune again in Pisces. And that degree of the square takes place also at 20 degrees, 40 minutes, close to where she retrogrades. She will, at this point, conjunct Mercury at 20 degrees on the 22nd of May. Then moving into June, Venus makes a square to Mars in Pisces at 14 degrees. And through her retrograde, she conjuncts the Sun, which happens on June 3rd as well at 13 degrees of Gemini. She makes another sextile to Chiron in Aries. At this point, that sextile happens at 9 degrees. And then she's going to go direct on June 25th at 5 degrees of Gemini. And in her direct motion, she will make a final sextile to Chiron. So that'll be interesting. Her whole time in Gemini, she's going to be having a experience with Chiron, the wounded healer, in Aries, the sign of self-worth. Then moving forward, she will inconjunct Jupiter in Capricorn, and that happens on July 27th at 20 degrees. She squares Neptune one more time, and that will also happen at 20 degrees on the 27th. She inconjuncts Pluto in Capricorn, and that happens on July 30th at 23 degrees. And then she inconjuncts Saturn in Capricorn as well. And that happens on August 4th. And finally, she will conjunct the North Node, which will by that time have moved into Gemini, as we can see here on August 5th at 28 degrees of Gemini. And then finally, Gemini moves into Cancer, and that happens on August 7th. So Venus is going to be busy over the next several months. We're talking April, May, June, July, 4 months roughly of being in the sign of Gemini. So let's talk about what Venus in the sign of Gemini is all about. Venus is about our expression of beauty, what we find beautiful personally. It's about our expression of creativity, how we express beauty, the things we like to wear that show our taste, or the things that we create that show what our taste is. So it has a lot to do with what we value. It also has to do with, again, what we find beautiful. It rules the signs of relationship, Libra, well, one sign of and Taurus, excuse me. So it has something also to do with relationships. I want to get some keywords from Paul Grell's keyword notebook. And what he says is Venus represents beauty and love. Feminine Venus is the goddess of love and beauty. Through love, we are conscious of others, have unity. Life, form, and reasons are necessities of human existence. Venus changes existence to living through the addition of love, art, and beauty in all the departments of physical life. Venus is also the planet of harmony, cooperation, and refinement. Through Venus, we beautify ourselves, our appearance, expression, and environments, and the lives of others. We can exist without love and beauty, but we cannot truly live without love, beauty, cooperation, harmony, and unity. And this is some keywords with the positive expression of what that keyword is, and then what he's calling a negative expression. So the basic principle is beauty, and we find rhythm or vanity. The basic expression of Venus is love, and we find devotion or indulgence. Art is refinement or display. Coalition is harmony or attachment. Sociable, companionable, or frivolous. Femininity, attractive or flirtatious. Impressionable, responsible or oversensitive. Gentle, courteous or indolent. Cooperative, considerate or indecisive. Gregarious, appreciative or vacillating. Original, creative or impractical. Musical, inspirational or temperamental. Romantic, charming or jealous. So that's a little bit about Venus. Now Venus in the sign of Gemini is going to make the expression of Venus tailored more towards the Gemini way of expression. So Gemini is an air energy, and it's mutable, which means it changes, and it can go from here to there very easily. You know, it's all about like wanting to collect information, like a butterfly moving from flower to flower, collecting pollen and then disseminating pollen. That's very Gemini, and it's about information and news and, you know, looking at things, labeling things. So to have our Venus, our loving energy, our creativity, what we find beautiful, and also our values. This book didn't really talk a lot about that, but because Venus rules the sign of Taurus, Taurus deals with what we value. So if we're looking at Venus expressed through the sign of Gemini, what might we expect to see? Well, you know, this could really bring more conversation, especially amongst, you know, our neighbors, people in our community, our immediate family. These are Gemini areas that might start happening. You know, we might start to find value or start to appreciate more of this kind of socializing with people more within our immediate sphere. That could be one expression of Venus and Gemini. We could also find ourselves wanting to create through the spoken word, through writing. That would also be a very Venus and Gemini type of expression. I'm also thinking about in the world right now, you know, what we might see is more local kind of local things happening around, you know, what's happening in our lives regarding the COVID-19 virus. You know, we might see more outpouring love, you know, more creative solutions coming within our local community again, because that would be very Gemini. Let me get a few more Gemini words for me to come up with some more ideas here. Some keywords for Gemini: mental, adaptable, duality, changeable, alert, restless, practical, dexterous, expressive, literary, sensitive, moderate, sociable, and intermediary. And some positive expressions are creative, versatile, tolerant, open-minded, learns easily, active, resourceful, jack of all trades, fluent, studious, responsive, moral, humane, and mediator. So as far as relationships go, you know, Venus in the sign of Gemini regarding relationships, you know, this could really be a time where our relationships become more about our desire to want to talk and connect and communicate, you know, perhaps through some of these online ways that people are finding to be valuable at this time, whether it's a Zoom connection or through Skype or, you know, something like that. There just could be more desire to connect with one another through our relationships in that way. There could be you know, changes in relationship at this time, because remember, Venus is going to be in the sign of Gemini for like 4 months, and it's going to go through a retrograde. So this could be a time where in relationship, people may begin to want to initiate change, because again, that's what Mercury ruled Gemini is all about. It's like, you know, wanting to move, wanting to change based on new information, really. So, you know, this could just be a time where there is a lot more dialogue in relationship, and maybe even some reflection through that retrograde process of, you know, is Venus really getting her needs met? That's a lot about what Venus is those are our needs. And, you know, are we feeling that they're getting, you know, that they're getting met, especially because Venus is going to be sextiling that Chiron in Aries 2 times during its retrograde cycle, which suggests that there's an opportunity here. If for any reason the Chiron, the wound in Aries of self-assertion has been like holding us back or making us feel like we don't, you know, have the courage to express ourselves, this Venus in Gemini is going to be sort of like, you know, this is what I like, and this is what I like, and this is what I like, and this is what I want. You know, it's going to be a lot more assertive regarding what its preferences are and what really it enjoys. That's what Venus is a lot about as well. The other thing to think about too during this whole Venus cycle is that it will also be squaring to Neptune 2 times during that process as well. And the Venus square to Neptune, what it could bring up is where we've been perhaps living in illusion around things. You know, Neptune is very big on creating a fantasy around things. And so with the fact that Venus, our preferences, our values, our tastes are going to be kind of coming into a hard angle with that Neptune, it might be a time where, you know, we're feeling a little bit more sort of confused about, you know, well, wait a minute, you know, it doesn't look like I thought it would, or maybe where we're realizing, where we're realizing sort of the fantasy of things is kind of like beginning to dissolve, you know, and we're really realizing more how maybe our own tastes, values, preferences is not necessarily in alignment with like some Venus and Neptune ideal, or even where we've been sacrificing ourselves, because that's very Neptune and Pisces. You know, we want to be the martyr. We want to be the person who helps, who sacrifices for the other. And this Venus and Gemini just be saying, hold up, you know, I've got some new information here, and I'm not necessarily digging what's going down anymore. So that could be some of that Venus squared Neptune energy that we'll experience during this transit of Venus through Gemini. But the other thing is very creative energy too, because both Venus and Neptune are connected to creative expression. And so again, through writing with Venus and Gemini, and Neptune and Pisces creativity is more like music or poetry, anything dealing, or even, painting, anything dealing with like tuning into a subtle energy that we can then, bring into form. So that should be interesting to experience during Venus's progress through the sign of Gemini. I did find it interesting that that very last part of the Venus transit is going to be Venus connecting with the North Node, at that point having moved into the sign of Gemini. And let me get to that time again, just before Venus moves on into the sign of Cancer. The North Node is backed up to about, I think it was 28 degrees of Gemini. Here, you can see that at this time on August 5th, just before Venus moves out of Gemini, she will conjunct with the North Node having moved into Gemini. And I think this is really a very cool way for Venus to kind of exit her transit through the sign of Gemini, because the North Node is where we're all collectively headed, and what it's doing in Gemini is suggesting that, we need to be talking, we need to be communicating, we need to be sharing information, we need to be expressing ourselves. So Venus, having gone through this retrograde cycle in the sign of Gemini, now has an opportunity to meet with the North Node in Gemini and really sort of enhance what she's integrated through this cycle, and express and really feel like she's doing it in a way that's in alignment with where we're headed, where she's headed, or the influence, I should say, on where we're all headed. So this is a nice symbol as Venus and Gemini exits, for Venus to really kind of give a shot or a boost to the North Node in Gemini energy, sort of saying, yeah, this is what, these are my preferences around how I think, and these are my preferences around how I communicate, and these are my preferences around, the relationships that I have with others. I think it just is a nice symbol that that's happening just as Venus is exiting the sign. All right, I think that's everything I want to say about Venus moving into the sign of Gemini. We're going to have a long while with this energy, so I hope that it's very productive for all of you, that you maybe gain some insight about yourself. Again, just remember, Venus really is a lot about our own preferences, our own tastes, as well as our creative expression. So this time is really going to be about helping us really understand more about what we like, what our tastes are, what our values are, and learn, more about how we can communicate that to others, and not be afraid of, whatever changes may come, because, that's what Gemini is about. It's a mutable, changeable energy, and it initiates change. So being open to what needs to change at this time around all of those aspects of ourselves. Thanks so much for watching. If you like my channel, please subscribe, and I'll see you at the next video. Take care.